Hello and a great big warm welcome to season 2, episode 5 of the Ask Zofie podcast. I have been faffing for a little while here with a few tech things and thinking, I always share a behind the scenes before I get into it. I have so many behind the scenes I could share, but I think what I'm going to share, maybe two things. One is, so you might have heard me say before in some of the first episodes where I started actually recording this for YouTube, that it's been a bit of a challenge for me to get this microphone set up. I still haven't found the perfect stand to have the mic in the right position. Anyway, every time I record one of these podcasts, because I'm not in the cupboard anymore, I bring my equipment out of the cupboard and set it up, and it takes a little bit of time. And I was just doing, some of you will know if you use Zoom, that you can test your speakers and microphone before you go into the Zoom. And long story short, I'm not even sure. After all of the faffing with this frickin' microphone, I'm not even sure that this microphone, I'm pointing to it if you're watching this on YouTube, is being used versus the inbuilt microphone in either Zoom or on my Mac. So I was just chuckling to myself about that. I'm gonna do some tests and try and figure it out, because it should be working. But I'm not sure if it is, so maybe I've just been doing all this faff for nothing so far. So laughing to myself about that. Another quick behind the scenes before I get into what I'm going to talk about today, which I am 100% so excited to share on. It was, my goodness, when did I do the masterclass? It must have been 2 weeks ago I did the masterclass, How to Not F It Up. And on that day, it was a Tuesday, I was really, really pumped and excited to share what I was going to share in the masterclass. And I have a similar vibe going on today. But anyway, before I do that, last week on Tuesday, actually, it was my daughter Yara's checkup. So you might know that she was diagnosed with scoliosis a number of months ago, and there's been some challenges with that. And she was given this brace to wear. And anyway, she had this checkup. I didn't think that it was possible for the brace to actually improve the curvature in her spine at all, but actually it was an incredibly, incredibly positive meeting with the specialist, because he said it's 2 curves in her spine, and one of them is improved with the brace on by about 10 degrees, and the other one perhaps even more. So we go back for another follow-up in 6 months, but hopefully this just means, so I'm just taking a swig of my water. Hopefully this just means that the brace is doing what it's meant to do. She's doing an awesome job because she's been wearing it so much, and she'll continue to do so, and there'll be no need for surgery or anything like that. So amazing. And the other thing I want to say on that is what I said to Yara when we came out of that meeting was, we need to celebrate this, because we could have been coming out today and he could have said to you that you need surgery, which you would have been really perturbed about, and we are not in that situation. And one of the things that we don't tend to do as humans is celebrate our wins and our successes and the things that we get that we want in our lives, to the same extent that we lament or we complain about our losses or what we don't get. It doesn't make you a bad person, it just makes you human. But working to address this balance is a really, really powerful thing that you can do. All right, before I get into it, and the title of today's episode is The Power of Facing Stuff, or I might call it The Power of Facing Your Stuff, I'm not sure yet. What you accept, you go beyond. But if you if you're one of my members and you haven't watched that masterclass replay that I sent you on email last Monday, and I sent it again this Monday, please watch it, because it is so helpful. If you're not one of my members and you want to access that replay, at some point I will sell it with some other replays that you can watch together. But for now, if you join my membership this week, then let me know and I will send you a copy of that replay, How to Not F It Up, because no word of a lie, no exaggeration, that content in that masterclass is life-changing. I've said this before. It's kind of a I want to say a condensation, but I don't think that's right. It's a condensed all of stuff that I've picked up across 17 years in this role that I'm in and this field, and put it into that masterclass. Having said that, I'm going to do a follow-up. Either it's probably going to be the final masterclass for the end of the year, and then January, I reckon I'm going to do one called Recession Proof Your Mindset, because I want to do both of them. But I did a poll on Instagram and most of you voted for the follow-up to how to not F things up. Anyway, I won't go on too much about that because I want to get into the topic of today, which, like I say, I'm so excited to speak on. This is another thing that has come out of that masterclass, How to Not F It Up. In that masterclass, if you don't know, I went through a pretty comprehensive list of the ways of thinking, the ways of being, the ways of acting that block you from living your best life, from manifesting the things that you desire, and so on and so forth. Because this is so empowering to know, and some of them you'll know, some of them you'll have no clue, some of them you will have forgotten. So this is kind of taken from that and come off the back of that. All right, I'm just, those of you who are watching on YouTube, I'm keeping an eye on my notes. Oh, and I just remembered what I forgot to do, which is share, excuse me, just leaning back here, something from Love Notes that I picked for you earlier. I feel like I want to read both pages, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, the first one is, if you feel forgot, know this is not me. I will never forsake my love for you. I will not let you fall. I will not fail you. And of course, this speaks, everything in this book speaks to the love of the divine that's omnipresent for you in your life. Oh, by the way, those of you who are watching on YouTube, do you like my mini, oh my God, I was just going to say pineapples. That's my brain at the moment. Pumpkins, how cute are they? And anyone who is watching on YouTube, or if you're not, and just listening, who's from my Manifesting Miracles 6 group, there's a little sunflower behind me too. Sunflowers were our sign in that group. So that's just a nod to you lovely ladies. And then the second page, I am within and without and all around in abundance. All of this speaks to the love of the divine, which isn't how the physical world is set up, not something the mind can understand, but it resonates with your soul. It will touch you in your heart when you're in that space, and you can allow these loving, lulling words to land. Okay, back to it. Yeah, the power of facing stuff. So you might know, because I talk about this a lot, I'm really open about things, that the thing that I'm focused on manifesting at the moment, the biggie, of course, was manifesting romantic love into my life. Took a little while, but like Oprah says, I wouldn't take nothing from my journey now, because it's worth it. It's so worth it to be in that really loving, stable, nurturing, nourishing relationship. But the other thing that I'm focused on manifesting now is financial abundance, is wealth. And I'm not where I want to be in the physical world yet, for lots of different reasons. It's just part of my journey. And something that I did a bunch of months ago was I sat with actually a friend of mine, her partner, who's really, really good with finances and stuff, sat with him and just went through everything. So, you know, quote unquote, faced everything. And this is something that we don't tend to like to do. We don't tend to want to just get on the scales and see what we're weighing now that in January, after we've just been scoffing Quality Street for breakfast and mince pies at 10 a.m. and I don't know, sherry with our lunch, or whatever we do over the Christmas period. We don't tend to want to just open all the credit card statements and see how much we spent on holiday or over Christmas or whatever it might be. But there is major power in doing this, which is why I want to speak to this. And on the flip side, it's incredibly disempowering when you don't do it. Okay, so I'm just looking at my notes and thinking, what did I even, oh, okay, yeah, I know what I'm saying here. So I'd said that the title of this podcast is going to be the power of facing stuff, or the power of facing your stuff. And then the sort of subtitle, what you accept, you go beyond. You might have heard me say this before. One of my favorite quotes of all time is this: what you accept, you go beyond. It's an Eckhart Tolle quote. It's not my quote. I can't take credit for it. Well, I could if I was one of those people that just repurpose other people's quotes and not do that. That's not my vibe. Okay, so you might have heard me say before that I was listening to an Eckhart Tolle meditation a number of years ago. It was in my old house. I remember I was laying on the bed, and in this meditation, Eckhart, my main man Eckhart, said, "What you accept, you go beyond." And I literally sat up, bolt upright, like, what the holy bejesus did he just say? Because it jolted my mind, it woke me up. It is something like Wayne Dyer's book, I will see it when I believe it. I've talked about this before. He said that when he wrote that title, he sent it to the publishers and they were like, "Wayne, you've written it wrong. It should be, I'll believe it when I see it." And he's like, "No, it's the other way around. It was done on purpose." When the mind hears this, what you accept, you go beyond, it's like, what? hang on a minute, say that again. What? No, that can't be right. But this is truth. Okay, we have this idea that what we resist, what we push away, will go away. It's like I talk about again in the masterclass, what not to do, which is venting. We believe that when we vent stuff, when we quote unquote get it off our chest, then it will be gone. And actually the opposite of that is true, because when we vent, we allow whatever we're venting to continue to persist within us. So Eckhart Tolle said, "What you accept, you go beyond." Jung said the same thing in a different way, which is what you resist persists. Okay, so I'm speaking to facing whatever it is. In the masterclass, I talked about seeing, if you're a similar age to me, then you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're younger, you might not. But when I was young, growing up, one of the things I would watch, I've got a really itchy nose, was Scooby-Doo. And I think it was his uncle who was Scrappy-Doo. And Scrappy-Doo, I just always remember, he was like, he had this real like go-getter, let me at him kind of attitude, and he'd be there with his little paw fists, whatever they are, going round and round, wanting to take this person on or whatever it was. And to me, when I think about my soul, your soul, anyone's soul, it embodies this like Scrappy-Doo-ness, just like bold, fearless, face whatever. Okay, so when Eckhart Tolle talks about this, how in order to overcome something, we have to first acknowledge it. This is why the statement, "I am where I am," or "it is what it is," actually has great wisdom and depth and poignancy to it. It is what it is. Like what exists right now, something that came to me a while back was everything that exists must be in divine order, must be okay, because divinity permits it to be. I don't know if you can get that. You might need to just think on that a moment, might just let it wash by you. It might make perfect sense. But it wouldn't exist if it wasn't in divine order, okay? So the first step is to acknowledge. And we can't acknowledge when we're pretending that something isn't there. So say, for example, the mind will want to distract us from stuff. It will say, "No, don't open those bills. It's going to be too high. It's going to freak you out," or whatever it might be, or "Don't get on the scales." It likes to sometimes keep you in either pretending or wallowing, okay? Imagine there's a sort of scale. In the middle, you've got acknowledge and then accept, which allows you to move on. And on either end, you've got pretending, burying your head in the sand, or wallowing. Pretending doesn't get you anywhere, okay? I like to give this example. There was a man years ago I saw walking along the road. It was a really windy day, and I was like, what is that down the back of that man's, down his back? It looked really weird. It caught my attention. And then I realized he had a really, really, really long comb over, and the comb over had blown over and gone all the way down his back. And it was probably like, I'm not exaggerating, if you know how long my hair is, a similar length to my hair, and it was blonde actually. So it didn't, probably according to most people's estimations, look aesthetically pleasing. Now, when we do an actual or a metaphorical comb over, everyone knows, right, that hair that you've come over your head, and obviously you don't see it very often nowadays, but that hair that you've combed over, we know it's not growing up from your head. You're kidding yourself, and you're not kidding anyone else. This is what we do when we refuse to face stuff, when we refuse to get on the scales, get the health check, go to the doctor, have that challenging conversation with someone, check our bank balance, what, I can't think of other examples, but whatever it might be. Okay, fear tells us, the mind tells us it's going to be too tricky, don't look at it, it's too scary, or whatever it might be. But that enables that unwanted situation or scenario to persist. On the flip side of that, or the other side of that sliding scale that I was talking about, you've got wallowing, going over and over. Oh my God, I'm so skinned, or I've put on so much weight, or I'm so unhealthy, or whatever it might be. Both of these states, the pretending, the sort of the doing the comb over on your own life or situation, and the wallowing, keep you stuck. Whereas when you face the stuff, the reason it's so powerful and empowering is because you are lining yourself up with your soul energy, with that scrappy-do, with that scrappy-do energy. And I say this all the time, but your soul, your higher self, when you're more tuned into that God consciousness, it has all the answers, has access to the solutions, the roadmap that will take you from where you are right now to where you want to be. The universe doesn't work how often like maybe parents work, which is them, or a boss or whatever, where they tend to the child or the employee who's complaining the most. The universe doesn't work this way. We often have this idea, well, if I don't complain, if I don't push against, then the universe is going to go, he or she's fine, we'll just leave them stuck or saddled with that situation that they don't want. It's actually the very opposite of this. When you can make peace with what's right in front of you, with what you have right now. So as an example, I'll use myself as an example. I said this earlier, financially, I don't have the funds in my bank account this minute that I desire. But if I just pretend, if I don't look at it, then that's going to keep me stuck, because I'm creating what I'm making bigger is this fear, like, oh, can't look at that, don't look at that, oh my God, it's too big and scary. A little bit like, say you were afraid of needles, and every time you had blood taken, you looked away. You are perpetuating the belief in your mind that there's something to be afraid of. If you were able to look at it and see it's just a really thin piece of, I assume it's metal, that's going in, that's doing its job, everything's okay, that fear would begin to I want to say, no, subside. That's the word. Oh my God. And by the way, I think it was 2 episodes ago, I couldn't think of a word, #perimenopausal. And the word was paradox. And I kid you not, it was like 4 days later, that word freaking came back to me. But anyway, back to my point. If I was just burying my head in the sand, doing the comb over, not looking, it enables the fear to take to grow, to get a bigger grip on me. And similarly, if I'm like checking every day, oh my God, I'm still in debt, or I owe this much, and worrying, I'm therefore allowing that same situation to persist, because what you focus on, you get more of. And contrary to that, when you acknowledge it, okay, I'm going to open these bills. In my example, I'm going to look at everything. This is what I owe. This is what I'm bringing in. This is it. Once you acknowledge it, then you can move into accepting it. And like Eckhart Tolle said, what you accept, you go beyond. Here's the thing, right? Your soul, your scrappy-do part of you that every one of us has within us, is flowing to us and through us to some degree, depending on how much we're pinching it off at any time. Doesn't judge. It doesn't go, oh my God, I can't believe you spent that amount of money. How did you manage to do that? Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't go, oh my God, you're so overweight. That's terrible. It just sees the facts. You owe £17,000. You have, you're overdrawn 3,000. It's just, okay, it is what it is. Or you weigh 15 stone, you weigh 10 stone. It's just numbers. There is no judgment. There is no, when you weigh less, you will be better. When you earn more, when you have more, you will be better. It's just preference, okay? Because the soul isn't judging. So there isn't this weight that comes along with observing the weight, or this weight of judgment that comes along with observing the numbers on a piece of paper. And so there's this clarity, there's this positivity, there's this ultimately this appreciation. And really the point that I want to hammer home to you is that the power in this comes from the fact that when you face your stuff, you line yourself up with the deepest, wisest, most positive part of you that will dig you out of any hole, that has everything, all of the resources that you need to bounce back from that unwanted situation. So I say this all the time, I'm about what works. You know, if it works to sit and wallow, then I might think about doing it or bury your head in the sand. It doesn't. What you accept, you go beyond, and you cannot accept until you acknowledge. I'm just checking if there's anything else I wanted to say. I don't think there is, actually. So this is really my kind of attempt to persuade you to face something. It's something that I'm really keen on doing in my life nowadays, is not having those like metaphorical skeletons in the cupboard and just like having the conversations. I've definitely learned this. I've talked about it with Daniel. I think part of it can happen, not necessarily, but happen as you get older and as you go into a second marriage or something like that, where you've had a relationship where things aren't talked about. I remember, I've heard this said a few times, but I remember hearing Matthew Hussey say, the quality of your relationships is determined by how willing you are to have uncomfortable conversations. And this is something like nobody wants to have those conversations, to say the thing that is going to potentially let the other person down or whatever it might be, to face stuff. But because I understand the power of this, it's something that I have dedicated myself to and won't just leave things kind of niggling. Because I was saying this about something else, I forget what it was now, but I think just negative thoughts in general, those situations that aren't faced, they're not benign, they're having an impact. It's like if your kitchen cupboards are full of crap, but with the cupboard doors shut, the kitchen looks tidy. You can't see it with your eyes, but you know it's there. And these things that aren't tended to in your psyche, in your life, they are having a drain on you. And the mind doesn't want you to face them. Sorry, just taking another swig of my water. Remember what I say. Fear speaks loudest when you're on the precipice of great change. Why doesn't the mind want you to face these things? Because the mind knows that when you face them, you're able to overcome them. What does that mean? It means growth. It means shifts. It means positive changes. It means up-leveling. Of course, from the perspective of the mind, this is scary and it's trying to protect you, and so it will stop you. Please have an understanding and awareness of this and make it work for you. So there's real power in facing your stuff. That narrative, that vernacular of the mind that tells you it's going to be terrible, whatever it might be, is not true. Don't listen to that voice. Ask yourself, what do I need to hear? What's the highest thought I can think about this, and so on and so forth, that will help tap you in to that more soothing voice that will make it easier. But please know, having those challenging conversations, checking your bank balance, your credit card statement, of course, logically, it is what it is. When I got my A-level results, at the time I was really anxious. I couldn't look at what they were. I asked my friend to open them and look, which obviously was born of fear. I was very afraid at that time. Completely illogical. Like, they're already written down, it's already done. I'd already done the exam however long before it was. And so it doesn't make any sense. And what you see is, like when you're in a dark room and you imagine that, I don't know, there's a snake over in the corner, and when you turn the light on, you realize it's actually just the belt from your dressing gown. I never know if it's a belt or a tie. Yara's been doing that TikTok thing where she puts it in her hair, and I'm like, what is it, a belt or a tie? I don't know, let me know. But That's all it is. And from the perspective of that Scrappy-Doo part of you, just like Scrappy-Doo was never afraid, he was there with his paw fists, getting geared up, ready to go. None of it is scary. There isn't anything to ever truly be afraid of when you're tethered to that part of you and understand that at the deepest of levels, in a way that the mind can't even begin to conceive of or comprehend, you're safe no matter what. You're an eternal being, that there's just this part of you that's here having this human experience right now, like Wayne Dyer's favorite quote, you are a spiritual being having a human experience and not a human being having a spiritual experience. When you get this, it's like, well, why wouldn't I open that? Why wouldn't I just get the test or whatever it is? Why wouldn't I have that conversation? So please allow that truth to soothe you and embolden you. And once you've done it once and you go, oh, actually everything's okay, it gets easier with practice. I wouldn't ever say maybe it's just easy at some point. I don't know. I definitely don't find it easy yet, but it's doable. It's nothing to be scared of, and it's so freaking worth it. So please let me know if I've inspired you to face something, whether it's just opening one blooming bill or ringing up your gas and electric supplier and just seeing how much are you paying now. It feels so good to do this, because it feels so good to align yourself with your inner Scrappy-Doo-ness, with your soul, with your higher self. All right, I really hope that that's helpful. Please let me know. By the way, I've mentioned this in email to my members and on Instagram. If you love my meditations or the kids' meditations and you share anyway, message me, because I will get you an affiliate link sorted out so that I can pay you anytime you do recommend someone and they actually sign up, because I'd love to do that. It's a great way for me to grow that membership and also to reward you and bring on board people who are genuinely into it, who've been recommended. I really, really, really love doing that. So please drop me a message if you're interested. Apart from that, thanks for listening or watching. Have an awesome rest of your day, and I will be back next week. Lots of love.